The key didn't turn. I didn't try again. You don't need to force something that used to open for you. I stepped back slowly, my hand still on the handle, and looked at the door like I'd never seen it before. New lock. Not scratched. Not temporary. Installed clean. Measured. Planned. Not a reaction. A decision. Inside. Voices. My son's voice carried through the wood, steady, relaxed, like nothing had changed. Like nothing needed to be explained. I stood there long enough to hear him laugh. Not nervous. Not rushed. Comfortable. Too comfortable for someone who just replaced a lock. Like the house behind that door still belonged to him. Not to me. I didn't knock. I listened. Footsteps. A chair moving. Glass touching wood. Normal sounds. Normal life. Without me. But placed wrong. Like I was the one out of place. I tried the key again anyway. Slow. Precise. It stopped halfway. Deliberate. Not broken. Blocked. Someone made sure of that. I pulled it out and looked at it in my hand like it was something outdated. Something replaced. Something that used to matter. That's when I noticed the small detail. My name, scratched faintly into the metal years ago. Half filed down. Not removed. Just, reduced. Still there. Just not important anymore. Inside, his voice lowered. It's done. No hesitation. No doubt. A pause. Then. He won't notice. That wasn't hope. That was confidence. I didn't move. Didn't breathe. Because moving would mean reacting. Because in that moment, I understood something had already been taken from me. Not the house. Control. And whatever was happening behind that door wasn't new. It had been building for a while. It was just the first time I was locked out of it. The first time it became visible. I stepped away from the door without making a sound. No reaction. No noise. Because whatever was happening inside was already in motion. And I wasn't going to interrupt it without understanding it first. I walked down the steps slowly, not looking back. Not because I didn't care. Because I needed to see the whole structure, not just the door. The house had been mine for 26 years. I built it before he finished school. Extended it when he got married. Paid off every last loan 5 years ago. Everything about it had my name on it. Or at least, it used to. He called it optimization. That was the word he used the first time he brought the documents. We were sitting at the kitchen table. Same table I just heard him using from the other side of the door. Dad, it just makes more sense legally. He said it calmly. Prepared. Like he had already rehearsed the explanation. I didn't sign immediately. I read enough to understand structure. Ownership layers. Transfer flexibility. Temporary holding. It's just cleaner this way. Cleaner. That word stayed with me. Because nothing in that document felt clean. It felt rearranged. I asked one question. Temporary? He didn't hesitate. Of course. That was the first moment. Not the lock. Not tonight. That sentence. Everything after that moved slowly. Too slowly to trigger resistance. But fast enough to change position. He started using "we" more often. We need to update insurance. We should restructure accounts. We'll simplify everything. We. I didn't correct him. I watched. Because "we" only works when both sides agree on control. And something about his tone told me he already thought I had. Then small things started shifting. Not obvious. Not aggressive. Precise. Files moved from my office. Just organizing. Furniture replaced. More efficient layout. Even the storage room. Rearranged without asking. Every time I noticed, the explanation was ready. Clean. Immediate. Unchallenged. Too smooth. That's what made it visible. Not the changes. The lack of friction. I tested it once. Casually. Where are the original documents? He didn't look at me. Digitized. Safer that way. Safer for who? I didn't ask. Because I already saw the pattern. Physical control disappears first. Then access. Then authority. I checked something that night. Not his files. Not his system. The registry. The real one. The one he assumed I wouldn't go back to. It took less than 10 minutes. My name wasn't there. Not partially. Not shared. Removed. Clean. Final. I didn't react. Closed the file. Turned off the screen. Because reaction would confirm timing. And timing mattered. From that point, everything made sense. The documents. The temporary. The we. The quiet rearranging of space. The confidence in his voice tonight. He won't notice. No. He didn't expect resistance. He expected delay. That was his mistake. I didn't go back to the door that night. Didn't call. Didn't message. I let him believe the structure was intact. Because the moment you show awareness, they accelerate. And I needed him slow. Comfortable. Certain. I got into my car and sat there for a while. Not thinking. Calculating. Because if the lock was new, then the plan was already complete. And if the plan was complete, then the mistake had already been made. I just needed to find where. The next morning, I didn't call him. I followed the routine. Same coffee. Same time. Same seat at the table that technically wasn't mine anymore. He walked in 10 minutes later. Calm. Rested. Morning. Like nothing had shifted. Like I still belonged in that space. I watched him move around the kitchen. He opened drawers without looking. Reached for things without checking. Muscle memory. Ownership behavior. That was the first red flag. Not what he said. How he moved. Like the house had already adjusted to him. Second came during breakfast. He placed a folder on the table. Didn't push it toward me. Just left it there. We should finalize a few things. Again, we. I opened it. Printed summaries. Accounts. Insurance. Access structures. Everything simplified. Too simplified. Names reduced to roles. Mine. Missing. I closed it. Later. He nodded too quickly. No resistance. That was the problem. No resistance meant he wasn't asking anymore. Third came that afternoon. A delivery arrived. Not unusual. Except it wasn't addressed to me. Not even jointly. Only his name. Full control designation. I signed for it anyway. The driver hesitated. Checked the tablet. You're not listed. He didn't say it aggressively. Just fact. I signed anyway. But I saw it. Even external systems. Updated. Fourth was smaller. but sharper. I went to the garage. One of the cabinets was locked. That cabinet had never been locked. Tools I bought. Equipment I maintained. I tried the handle. Solid. New mechanism. I didn't ask him about it. Because locks weren't accidents anymore. That evening, I tested something simple. I'll handle the property tax this quarter. A normal sentence. Routine. He didn't look up. Already taken care of. Past tense. Without discussion. Without notice. That was new. Not help. Replacement. But the real discovery came later. Not from him. From a call he didn't expect me to hear. He stepped outside. Left the back door slightly open. Just enough. His voice dropped. Controlled. Yes, it's already transferred. Pause. No, he signed everything. Another pause. Then quieter. He doesn't have direct access anymore. I didn't move. Didn't step closer. Because I already heard enough. Access. Not ownership. Not documents. Access. That was the word that changed everything. Because ownership can be argued. Documents can be challenged. But access. That's control in real time. And if I didn't have it anymore, then whatever I thought I still owned was already out of reach. That's when it became clear. The lock on the door wasn't the first step. It was the last visible one. I didn't confront him. I changed my pace. Slower on the outside. Precise underneath. First, I checked the accounts. Not the ones he showed me. The original structures. The older access points he assumed I stopped using. One by one. Login. Verification. Denied. Every system returned the same message. Permissions updated. Not blocked. Reassigned. That was different. Blocked means resistance. Reassigned means replacement. I logged out without retrying. Because repeated attempts leave traces. And I wasn't ready to show movement. Next, I went to the office. Not his. Mine. The one that had been reorganized. Drawers aligned. Folders labeled. Everything cleaner than I ever kept it. I opened the cabinet where I used to keep contracts. Half empty. Not missing randomly. Selected. Every document tied to ownership. Gone. Only operational papers remained. Maintenance. Utilities. Low-level details. He didn't erase everything. He filtered. That told me something important. He wasn't hiding the house. He was separating control from appearance. I didn't react. I drove to the registry office. In person this time. No digital trail. Requested full history. Not summary. History. The clerk hesitated. That's a full extract. I know. She printed it anyway. I stepped aside and read. Original ownership, mine. Transfer, 3 months ago. Not recent. Not last week. 3 months. Filed quietly. No notification flagged to my primary address. That meant something had been changed earlier. Before the transfer. Contact channels. That was the first deeper reveal. This didn't start with documents. It started with isolation. I folded the papers and left. Still no reaction. But the direction shifted. This wasn't about reversing a decision. This was about understanding the sequence. That evening, I checked something smaller. Mail. Physical. The box outside. I hadn't used it regularly in months. Inside. Mostly empty. Except for a few envelopes redirected. Stamped. Forwarded. Not to me. To him. That confirmed it. Communication had been rerouted. Not just digital. Everything. Layer by layer. I tested one more thing. A supplier I'd worked with for years. Called directly. Any recent updates on the property account? Pause. Yes, we received new authorization. From me? Another pause. From your son. Full control access. No hesitation. No doubt. Already processed. Already accepted. I ended the call. Didn't correct it. Because correction requires authority. And I needed to know how far that authority had spread. That night, I sat in the car again. Not outside the house this time. Further down the street. Where I could see the lights. But not be seen. Patterns were clear now. Documents transferred. Access reassigned. Communication redirected. External systems updated. Physical space reorganized. No single move stood out. But together. It was complete. Systematic. Layered. Quiet. This wasn't a takeover. It was a replacement. And I had been phased out of my own life. Weeks before I noticed the lock. I didn't need more proof. I had the sequence. And once you see the sequence, you stop looking for explanations. You start looking for intent. 3 months ago, the transfer happened. But before that, contact details changed. Notifications redirected. Access slowly reassigned. Not in one move. In layers. So nothing triggered alarm. So nothing felt immediate. He didn't take the house. He removed me from it. Step by step. System by system. Until the only thing left was my assumption that things hadn't changed. That's why he sounded calm behind that door. That's why he said, he won't notice. Because from his position, there was nothing left to notice. Everything had already been moved. I went home. Not to that house. My apartment across town. The one I kept but never used. It still had my name on the lease. Still had untouched systems. Unlinked. Unchanged. I sat down at the desk and opened the one thing he never asked about. Never questioned. Because it didn't look important. The control panel. Not for the house. For everything connected to it. 3 years ago, after a dispute with a contractor, I changed how things worked. Centralized systems. Layered permissions. Independent overrides. Not visible in ownership documents. Not transferred with property. Not accessible through signatures. He focused on the house. On paper. On registry. On legal control. That's where most people stop. I didn't. I logged in. No rush. No hesitation. The system responded immediately. No changes. No interruptions. No access requests. Because he didn't know it existed. I started checking connections. Utilities. Security. Network routing. Financial automation. Every layer still pointed to one place. Me. That was the gap. The only one. But it was enough. Because control isn't ownership. Control is execution. And execution still ran through me. I didn't activate anything. Not yet. I mapped it. Every dependency. Every trigger. Every fail-safe. Slow. Exact. Because once I moved, there would be no correction. Then I stopped. Closed the system. Turned off the screen. And waited. No calls. No messages. No return to that door. Because the situation was no longer unclear. No misunderstanding. No confusion. It was a completed structure. And now. So was my response. I didn't need the house back. I didn't need an explanation. I didn't need him to admit anything. I just needed timing. And when it came, I would act once. Precisely. And leave nothing for him to adjust. I leaned back in the chair and looked at the dark screen. Everything was already in place. On both sides. The difference was, he thought it was over. I knew it hadn't started yet. I didn't need more proof. I had the sequence. And once you see the sequence, you stop looking for explanations. You start looking for intent. 3 months ago, the transfer happened. But before that, contact details changed. Notifications redirected. Access slowly reassigned. Not in one move. In layers. So nothing triggered alarm. So nothing felt immediate. He didn't take the house. He removed me from it. Step by step. System by system. Until the only thing left was my assumption that things hadn't changed. That's why he sounded calm behind that door. That's why he said, he won't notice. Because from his position, there was nothing left to notice. Everything had already been moved. I went home. Not to that house. My apartment across town. The one I kept but never used. It still had my name on the lease. Still had untouched systems. Unlinked. Unchanged. I sat down at the desk and opened the one thing he never asked about. Never questioned. Because it didn't look important. The control panel. Not for the house. For everything connected to it. 3 years ago, after a dispute with a contractor, I changed how things worked. Centralized systems. Layered permissions. Independent overrides. Not visible in ownership documents. Not transferred with property. Not accessible through signatures. He focused on the house. On paper. On registry. On legal control. That's where most people stop. I didn't. I logged in. No rush. No hesitation. The system responded immediately. No changes. No interruptions. No access requests. Because he didn't know it existed. I started checking connections. Utilities. Security. Network routing. Financial automation. Every layer still pointed to one place. Me. That was the gap. The only one. But it was enough. Because control isn't ownership. Control is execution. And execution still ran through me. I didn't activate anything. Not yet. I mapped it. Every dependency. Every trigger. Every fail-safe. Slow. Exact. Because once I moved, there would be no correction. Then I stopped. Closed the system. Turned off the screen. And waited. No calls. No messages. No return to that door. Because the situation was no longer unclear. No misunderstanding. No confusion. It was a completed structure. And now. So was my response. I didn't need the house back. I didn't need an explanation. I didn't need him to admit anything. I just needed timing. And when it came, I would act once. Precisely. And leave nothing for him to adjust. I leaned back in the chair and looked at the dark screen. Everything was already in place. On both sides. The difference was, he thought it was over. I knew it hadn't started yet. I didn't start immediately. That would have been visible. Instead, I made small adjustments. Quiet ones. First, I let him settle deeper. 2 days. No questions. No tension. I even sent a message. Staying at the apartment for a few days. He replied fast. Good. You should rest. No concern. No curiosity. That told me everything. He wasn't worried about where I was. Only that I stayed away. Second, I reactivated notifications. Not to him. To the original endpoints. Systems he didn't know existed. Alerts that only triggered on conflict. On overload. On failure. I didn't trigger anything yet. I just restored visibility. Third, I prepared a delay. A buffer. If he tried to override, the system wouldn't break. It would stall. Slow responses. Timeout loops. Nothing obvious. Just enough to make control feel unstable. That was important. Because panic doesn't come from loss. It comes from inconsistency. Then I waited. 48 hours. No movement from him. No changes. That meant one thing. He believed everything was complete. I chose the time carefully. Late afternoon. When everything is active. Payments processing. Utilities cycling. Security systems syncing. Maximum dependency. Minimum tolerance for failure. I logged in. No hesitation. No second thought. And I executed the first step. Not shutdown. Not yet. Restriction. Selective. Access layers began to close. Not fully. Just enough to disrupt flow. Within minutes. The first signal came. A missed authorization request. Then another. Then a cascade. Systems asking for permissions. That no longer responded. I watched the panel. No rush. Because this part had to build. 7 minutes later. My phone rang. His name. I let it ring once. Twice. Then answered. Yes. No greeting. On the other end. Breathing. Fast. Dad, something's wrong. I stayed quiet. Let him fill the silence. I can't access the accounts. The system's not responding. It just stopped. Stopped. That word again. What system? I asked. Pause. Too long. Everything. There it was. I didn't answer immediately. I initiated the second step. Hard lock. Behind him. Through the line. I heard movement. Drawers opening. A chair falling. Dad, did you change something? No accusation. Not yet. Just confusion. I stood up. Walked to the window. Calm. You said everything was under control. Silence. Then. It was. Past tense. I ended the call. No warning. Third step. Execution. Full denial. All access points closed. All systems redirected. And then. The notification went out. Not to him. To where it needed to go. External. Formal. Irreversible. 10 minutes later. He called again. This time. No control. Dad, what did you do? Not calm. Not confident. Cracking. I didn't answer. I let it ring. Again. Again. Then I drove back. Not rushed. Not aggressive. Just precise. When I arrived, he was outside. Standing exactly where I had stood. In front of the door. Keys in his hand. Trying them. Again. And again. The door didn't open. He turned when he saw me. Face pale. Controlled posture. Gone. What is this? I walked past him. Didn't stop. Didn't explain. He stepped in front of me. Blocking. Desperate now. You can't just lock me out. I looked at him. Finally. Direct. I didn't. A pause. He frowned. Confused. I held his gaze. And said it once. Clear. Final. I removed access. Something in his face shifted. Not anger. Not yet. Understanding. Because for the first time, he realized. This wasn't a reaction. It was structure. Behind him. The house stayed silent. Locked. And for the first time, he was the one outside. Not prepared. Not in control. Just holding keys. That didn't work anymore. He didn't argue after that. Not really. He stepped back from the door slowly, like distance might fix something. Tried his phone again. Then another call. Then another. Each one shorter. Each one louder. No answers. Because there was nothing left to reach. By the next morning, it had already spread. Accounts flagged. Access revoked. External review triggered. Not loud. Not public. But active. Moving. Exactly where it needed to. He came to the apartment once. Didn't knock hard. Just enough. Controlled. When I opened the door, he looked different. Not angry. Not confident. Measured. We need to talk. I didn't move aside. There's nothing to discuss. A pause. Then. You're overreacting. I held his gaze. No. That was all. He understood then. Not everything. Just enough. Enough to see that this wasn't temporary. Not a phase. Not something he could wait out. He left without another word. No scene. No apology. Just distance. I didn't go back to the house. Didn't need to. Because control was never in the walls. It was in the systems. The structure. The parts no one sees. Until they stop working. And when they did, everything became clear. What would you do if your own son quietly took control of everything you built? Write it in the comments. And subscribe. Because control is never taken in one move. It's taken in silence.